Hi guys, and welcome to part 2. It's a Sunday afternoon, January 2023. Average UK's winter day, windy as hell, so excuse the sound quality, but let me show you what I've got for this car so far. So the first bit of parts that I got for it are of course to make it look nice and presentable. M Sport side skirts in the same colour as the car, sapphire black, in fairly decent condition with very minor marks. M Sport rear bumper off of an LCI car, not that it's any different to a pre-LCI M Sport bumper, but it's all the parts are off of the same car, so there you go. Also sapphire black, good condition, a couple of little scratches, but once it's on the car it should be nice and straight, and I should be able to polish most of them off. And an M Sport roof lining, which I think will be a nice touch for the interior. You've got the grab handles, A pillars, B pillars, C pillars, brake light cover, the little bits of trim, the sun visor mounts, clips, the actual roof lining itself with the two lights, the two centre lights and the two little vanity mirror lights, and you've got some pre-LCI sun visors. Now the headlining is from an LCI car, but on the LCI they went and changed the sun visors to the plastic ones, which I think feel horrible and are very cheap. So I've specifically went and got pre-LCI sun visors, which are the same material as the actual roof lining itself. So it's just a nice touch. I think it's quite important, the items that you touch from time to time, that they had a nice feel to them and didn't feel plasticky like you're in a Nissan. And finally, what you've got is the rear boot lid, or a trunk lid if you are in the States, with LCI LED tail lights. Complete trunk lid with the lights and the wiring harness still in it and the cover. I've also gone and got the actual connectors for the lights themselves, just in case they're different. From what I've read so far, they're no different to pre-LCI harness connectors, but just in case they are, I could use these. And even if they are the same, I can check the wire colour, the order of the wires, to make sure that I don't actually get anything mixed up and everything is connected correctly. So I think I'm going to start with doing the roof lining. I'm going to pull the old grey one off of the car. It should be a fairly straightforward job. The only difficult part is getting the main piece out of the car, and you usually do that by dropping the actual front seats fully flat, and you should be able to wiggle it out through the passenger door. So we'll do it that way, and if I've still got a bit of daylight, it hasn't started raining and I haven't had enough, I might get on to doing the actual tailgate, boot lid, trunk lid, whatever you want to call it, and then perhaps the bumper as well. So this is what we're starting with, and hopefully we'll end up with a slightly nicer picture by the time all these parts are on the car. Right, so to start with, let's get the roof lining off. What you'll need is a Torx drive. You've got a couple of bolts there, you've got a bolt in there, then you've got to pull these back, and you've got a few bolts, one in there, one in there. All the handles, you'll need to remove the pillars, B pillars, A pillars, there's a bolt behind the airbag badge. You'll need to remove C pillars, and then you also need to remove the seat belts. The seat belts are actually bolted into the seats down there, and it's quite tricky to actually get the cap off to get to the bolt from the seat belt, but hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So let's get going and let's see if we can get this thing out. So it's mostly out, most of the things are removed. Just to note, the little screws that go in there on the A-pillar trims behind the airbag badges, they are T20s, not T25s, as well as these screws here. So once they're removed, you can go ahead and pull these pillar trims off. And let's give it a go. So just pull this forward, and you've got to slide it up like that, and then it should just pop off. There we go. So putting it back is actually easier because you could just align it on the parcel shelf and you can clip it on because the clips are pointy, but sliding it out where the clips have got little teeth, they won't let you come out of the narrow bit, so you've got to slide the whole trim up and out, and there you go. Also pull the door seals down because the main piece of the roof lining is going to be coming down in a second. And now on to removing the B pillars. So what you've got to do is you've got to unclip them from the centre. There are two sort of door card clips in there, so you just pry it this way. Then what you've got to do is you've got to slide this up and slide this down. So the only way to do that is you've got to unclip the bottom bit. So if you pry it further, there are further clips down the bottom. You can just slide it from underneath these sill trims. Once that drops down, you can separate it here. Do not force it because these clips love to break, so don't force it. And then once you've separated it in the middle, you can slide it down from the top and we're good to go. So now just got to do the other side, and we can unplug the lights, move the wiring harness out of the way, and take this whole assembly out. And then it's out. So you've got two clips to worry about here where the rear brake light cover is. So once that cover's removed, you can actually put your fingers in there and pry it, pop these clips. Then when it comes to the front, what you've got to do is there are little push clips here which you need to address, which are absolute nightmare to get to. So once you've dropped the roof lining ever so slightly, you need to get a thin long screwdriver and get to these points here, and you've got to push them like that so they release the little bracket that's attached to the roof lining. Once you've done that, you can unplug these three plugs that connect to the center interior light here. Will connect into there, so you can unplug them, and then the roof lining can come off. You could also, to release this safely without bending this bracket like I did, you've got to push these little tabs down, and that will just release the center light, and then you can work with the center light from the other side when the roof lining is still up in the roof cavity. And then once that's all done, you sort of get it out this way. If you bend it a little bit, it's not that much of a problem because they tend to regain shape once they're back in place. Even the new roof lining is a little bit creased around the sides, but that's going to go back to normal within about a day or two. So now let's get this back on and let's bolt everything back together. And as predicted, it rained quite a bit, but luckily the old roof lining's outside and I don't really care about it, so nothing important actually got soaked. Now the new roof lining is in, the C pillars are on, B pillars we'll get to a little bit later. I left the wiring harness exposed here. The clips are holding it, so if we focus on there, can't really see well, but these clips here are holding it. At the front, I've put the little sun visor mounts on, they're helping to hold it here. The door seals as well. That side A pillar is on, and this side A pillar is on. Now putting the A pillars on is a little bit tricky. There are two prongs down the bottom, so these things here, which are very tricky to get in. So you sort of got to slide it in such way that you clip the front on that way, and then you slide it down, and then it should align with this little trim here, if you can see that line there. And you can actually check whether the clips are inside the dash, the little teeth are inside the dash, and then you've got this little middle clip here that needs to clip into the chassis, and finally you've got this little bolt with the clip just there. So just take care about how you're putting things in. This little clip here has got a little tooth as well, so it should slot in like that, and then just make sure it's sitting flush before you bolt it down, because if it's not sitting flush then you won't be able to put the little cap on that says airbag on it, and it's just going to look a little bit off. Now on this side, if you look at the gap between the trim and the windscreen, so if you look at the little black line, it's consistent all the way across, and over there it's sitting nice and flush, just like it is here with the dashboard. And finally, let's get onto the B-pillars, B-pillar trims. So these bits here, to undo them, you need to unbolt the seat belt from the seat, and it's bolted down with this T50 Torx bolt. So in order to get to it, there's this little cap that's hiding the bolt at the seat base. So I've moved the seat forward, lifted it up, dropped the seat back all the way down, and the trick here is not to break it, is to get to this little clip here. This clip is part of the cover, and it slots into this gap here. So when this is installed, like so, you need to try and get the screwdriver in there and apply pressure onto this little clip or a tooth, this one here, to release it, and then it'll just pop off this way, and then you'll lift it up like that. It's a little bit tricky, but for reference, the location of this clip is just about here, so it's around about there. Once you drop the seat back, you can actually pry this back ever so slightly, and if you look in there with a light, you should be able to see just the tip of the clip, and then you just press down on it, that will release it, and then you can lift it like that. Undo the bolt, swap the trim piece, and reverse to assemble. And once you've bolted the seat belt down, you can put the cap back on, and you can move on to assembling the B-pillar trim onto the car. Now the best way to do this without breaking anything would be to remove the sill trims, that trim there and this trim here. And to do that, on the front you just pry it up, and on the back there are clips here which you've got to pry up, but there's also a clip underneath the bench here. So the best thing to do is just lift the bench up. If you just pull it up, it'll pop out. Once you've unclipped it, the seatbelt buckles will just slide through the little holes in the seat bench, and then you can take this, move it out of the way, leave it outside, and you can move on to removing this little trim here. So this trim piece here is held on by a little clip with a little center insert, so you just pry the center insert, and then the clip and the insert will come out, and then you can pry it from the actual seal itself and move it out of the way. Once you've done that, you can reinstall this piece and this piece. So this piece has two clips, one here and one here at the top, and two clips at the bottom, one here and one here. So what you should do is you'll slide this upper piece into the roof cavity here. There are two specific slots for it. Slide it on. Then you slide this lower piece onto this piece, and then as you pull these seals back, you can just swing it on, align the clips, and pop it on. Once you've done that, you can reinstall the sill trims, that one and this one. And to do that, chances are the clips that hold these on would have been stuck in the sill itself, so just pry them up, move them back onto the little sliding slots on the back of these trims, reassemble it onto the trim, and then put it on, align it, just tap it down, and you should be good to go. And then obviously put the seat bench back on, put the little clip back on, and that should be it. And to finish the video off, one little point about reinstalling the C-pillar trims. This bit here slides into the parcel shelf, and so does that, but that usually doesn't align. So if you imagine where that's supposed to be when you're installing it, just take extra care that this little tooth goes into the appropriate slot in the rear parcel shelf, otherwise there's going to be a little gap left there which you don't really want. So generally just take care as you're putting things back on, use a bit of finesse and common sense, and you should be good. And this is the final result. Everything is on. I'm very pleased with it. Everything went on the way it's supposed to go on. All the clips I managed to save, nothing got broken, and everything just fits as it should. I've given the roof lining and all the bits and bobs a good clean with a damp microfiber cloth, and then a dry one to finish it off. The sun visors got cleaned, and overall it's just a much nicer place to be. I've also tidied up the interior ever so slightly. It was a mess before, but there's still plenty of work to do. So I think next what we're going to do is we're going to address the steering wheel, the gear knob, the trims, potentially the start button. We're going to clean everything. I think I'm going to replace the climate control unit with the facelift one because it's slightly nicer. It's got slightly nicer turn knobs. We might replace the cup holders because this one doesn't work. That one does, but this one doesn't. So LCI ones with a little brushed aluminium line on them. Need to get rid of that old road tax circle on the windscreen since it's no longer needed. We will probably update the infotainment system as well with the CI drive. This is the old CCC type, so it'll probably get a CI drive, and that should be interior pretty much finished off. But enough for now. Hopefully see you in part 3, and take care.